is it actually fair for us to just assume that the U.S. women's national team will win? And I think the answer is no. Hi, I'm Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Alex.
And this is Raising the Game, a women's sports podcast covering primetime performers, the business behind the athletes and the leagues, and what the growth of women's sports means for the next generation of women's athletes.
We're back. Is this episode 28 or
28?
28. All right.
I think
we are
I can't
here
keep track
again.
of anything right now.
Starting to lose count at this point, which is a good thing.
It is.
I think we've got quite a bit to cover. We're going to go in depth in an interesting topic tonight.
Yeah.
About the different programs different countries use for their soccer talent pool.
Yeah, we're glomming on a little bit to the World Cup fever that's been going on with the men's tournament here in the States, and wanted to take a little peek ahead to the women's tournament next year. And I'll just put it this way: I think I have a bold thought experiment. I won't call it a hypothesis quite yet, but a thought experiment about something I think the U.S. women's national team needs to be on the watch for.
Yep. We'll also talk NWSL and WNBA roundup as well.
As usual. I mean, can we go a week without
not right now
wild news in the WNBA?
Not right now.
No. All right. Favorite thing?
Let's do it.
You got one?
Yeah, I think mine was our youngest had a birthday party this weekend, and we got to sit outside on our newly built patio and watch the Lynx game.
Oh, yes.
With all of our family members.
They beat the Liberty.
Very nice.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I also said our youngest, she turns 4 tomorrow, and our girls, as you all can probably imagine, have a certain level of enjoyment for women's sports. Probably they may feel forced upon them by their parents. But I am super excited because we decided for actually both of our girls' birthdays, our oldest's birthdays at the end of the summer, to get them Olivia Miles jerseys. And then we're taking them to a Lynx game in early August. And I'm really excited to see how they react. But bigger than that, like, that's awesome. We're super fortunate to be able to like do that as a gift.
Yep.
To me, it's more of the symbolism behind like that's something that's accessible to them. Obviously the WNBA was around when I was a kid growing up, but like just the way that they can experience sports and have role models, and like they love Olivia Miles. They love a lot of players in the W. Is just really cool.
Yeah. You probably did not have the WNBA on every single night like we do right now.
No, because I think that we maybe got like 12 games a season that were broadcast nationally. And that was not a primary fixture in our house.
For sure. All right. Should we move it on to headlines?
Do it.
All right. At Wimbledon, Czech Linda Noskova defeats fellow countrywoman Karolina Mukova in a thriller to clinch her first Grand Slam trophy.
Yes.
Serena alludes to plans to play in the U.S. Open this fall. You called it.
We clocked this last week.
Last week.
I don't actually think it was that big of a clock. I feel like the rumors were already swirling.
They were swirling.
But I will take credit.
South Korean Haeron Yu wins Amundi Evian Championship in playoff over Canadian Brooke Henderson for her second major title in a span of 3 weeks.
So she also ended up making LPGA history by being the second player to win a major, 2 majors in a year. So that's never happened in LPGA Tour history where 2 players have won 2 majors.
Yeah.
So Nelly Korda was the other one. She won the first 2 earlier this year. So very cool to see.
U.S. rower Kelsey Fendler rose from California to Hawaii in 44 days, breaking women's record by 42 days and the men's record by 8 days.
She broke the record by half.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
insane.
Wild. How do you just like decide to do that?
You got to be a little certain kind of crazy, I think. Gotham FC will make the brand new Etihad Park their home beginning in 2028.
So we had talked about how this was potential, and now it's confirmed. So this will move the team from Harrison, New Jersey to Queens, New York, which is very different.
Yeah.
But they'll be sharing with the primary tenant. The Etihad Park is being built for New York City FC,
Mhm.
the men's MLS team there. But the space is currently being designed with Gotham in mind. So there are going to be some Gotham branded spaces. They're doing a lot of
Yeah.
digital signage so they can easily
Yeah,
change
swap
it
that out.
out. And then this also is amazing because it comes on the heels of we just a couple weeks ago we talked about their training facility being
Yeah.
built in Whippany, New Jersey. And then Etihad has 25,000
Wow.
a capacity of 25,000, and I think something that has um kind of befuddled the NWSL pundits, if you will, is that you have this club that's really, really successful,
Yep.
but they don't tend to get great attendance
Yeah.
in Harrison. And so I wonder if this is a little bit
Yeah,
of a
trying to move it there,
calculated
yeah.
move to get it closer to a more densely populated area, but also Queens is like one of the most diverse
Yeah.
neighborhoods,
Yep.
or boroughs, I should say, in New York. So I think you're going to see a
Yeah.
lot more fans.
Yeah. ESPN to air Life in the W, a six-part docuseries following WNBA stars Asia Wilson, Nafisa Collier, and Dewana Bonner through the 2025 season.
Oh, I am sad for that. That's gonna premiere next weekend. So
All
in
right.
conjunction with All-Star Weekend, which I think is a calculated
Yeah.
move, right?
Yep.
Premieres on July 24th on ESPN2. You can also find it on the ESPN app. And then I assume there's gonna be
Yeah.
probably another way to get to it, but I would definitely
Yeah.
recommend watching.
I don't think I can relive Fee's injury. I don't want to do that.
That is very true.
A little bit traumatic.
Yes.
Uh,
Getting in here to just a quick roundup of WNBA highlights. Alex and I will kind of rapid fire through these. So LA Sparks fired their GM Reagan Pebley. The team is 5-5 in their last 10 games, 10-11 on the season. Ninth overall in the league. So like not horrible,
yeah.
but I think they are we've talked about this a lot, way underperforming
Yeah,
for
for
what their
sure.
roster is.
And just lost another one tonight.
Yeah.
So WNBA record attendance in Montreal with almost 21K out to see Paige, Bueckers, and Marina Mabry and co put on a show.
Yeah, both Mabry and Bueckers had
Yeah.
34 points. They were cooking.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In case you missed it, Marina also featured in our next
Yes.
highlight, where she had a shoe thrown at her by Benaya Laney Hamilton
Yep.
of the New York Liberty in their game on Sunday. Laney Hamilton was ejected. It actually sounds like it was kind of a momentum shift moment in the
Yeah.
game, and the Liberty are on a slide
Yeah.
of kind of epic proportions right now.
Yep.
So we will be keeping our eye on that, but also throwing a shoe at Marina, I don't know
Yeah.
if that's a good
It
choice.
does sound like maybe she was trying to throw it at her teammate, Jonquel,
Okay.
but
You
there were some things earlier in the
Jonquel
night.
was
Yeah.
not like that doesn't make any sense if you watch the video.
Kennedy Carter waived by the Aces.
This shocked
Yeah,
all
everyone.
of us.
Everyone.
We're like, wait, what? So no idea what's going on there. Clearly, there's something outside of the basketball play that's at play.
Yeah.
And that's all we'll say about that. Speaking of the Aces, they went ahead and set the record for the biggest point swing from a win to a loss in WNBA history with 82 points. So they won against the Phoenix Mercury on Saturday by 48. I said that.
Yep,
48. And then they turned around and lost to the Indiana Fever on Sunday by 34 points.
Jeez.
Now, kudos to the Fever. They had a great game plan. They executed well. Aces were struggling.
Yeah.
They were struggling from the get. But my goodness,
Yeah,
not a record
that
you
is
want.
wild. Chicago just can't beat the Wings, lose after having fourth quarter lead for the third time this year.
Man, that is just rough. We watched the end of that game, and I think we've seen all three of those games, and it's just tough. And then in maybe the weirdest WNBA news of the week, 11 members of Congress, U.S. Congress, write to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert demanding action to protect one player. So
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on. Meanwhile, there are a lot of things that I would personally rather Congress be focusing on. But we can agree that we need to have consistent officiating
Yep.
and make sure that we prioritize player safety at all times.
I'm not gonna get started on this one. I'm just gonna
No,
move to the next one.
we're moving on.
We're not that kind of podcast. Rapper Flavor Flav
Sometimes.
at it again, covering all travel, glam, and wardrobe costs in support of the U.S. women's ice hockey team, who were nominated for Best Team at the ESPYs to enable the full team to be there.
Okay, so I love this story because what Flav recognized was if you get nominated for best team, a lot of times you're only allowed to have like 3 or 4
Yeah,
players from the team there, and he was like, "Nah,
everyone.
we are celebrating everybody here. I'm getting everyone tickets. We're getting you in the building." And if I hope they win because I would love it if like that
Yeah.
entire team gets to go up on
Well, and,
stage.
and didn't it come out that Paris Hilton was like, we're going to give you all
Yeah,
like
in
2
hotel
million Hilton
rooms.
points
Yeah,
each
or
or whatever?
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they're jumping in.
The U.S. women's national team announces October friendlies against world number 1 and defending World Cup champion Spain.
What did I say to you earlier today? I saw this, I sent it to Alex, and I said, "Emma Hayes wants to win the 2027 World
Yeah.
Cup." She is not shying away
No,
from
not at all.
fire in these or these build-up games. So first game will be Saturday, October 10th at Audi Field, Audi in DC.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like, "My brother, you should go. He lives in
Yeah.
DC." I was thinking about flying out there. I'm just saying. I'm letting you know right now.
She's telling me now,
I'm telling
everyone.
Alex now. Listeners, you don't need to be a part of this. And then they'll play again on Tuesday, October 13th at Subaru Park in
Right.
Philadelphia.
And that's right before there's some
Right
November
before their
friendlies. All
qualifying game
right.
against El Salvador in November.
Right. The U.S. Women's National Team 2019 equal pay lawsuit with U.S. Soccer means the women's and men's teams split World Cup earnings equally. Both teams will earn $6.4 million from the men's team round of 16 achievement.
Yeah, so this equals out to about 246K per player for both teams is how that gets distributed because there's a portion that goes to
Yeah.
US Soccer and then we're not going to get into this
Yeah.
today
Yeah.
either, but something to keep in mind. It will also happen depending on how much the women earn
Yeah.
next year. Some of their winnings from that tournament will also go to the men's team.
Yep. In the PWHL, teams are upping their venues, with Ottawa Charge officially making Canadian Tire Center their home arena, and Boston Fleet changing their primary arena to Agganis Arena.
We're gonna go with
We're
it.
going to go with that.
Agganis is closer to the Boston core. It's right on the campus of Boston University.
Right.
And I actually looked this up on a map today. It is so much closer to Boston's like central Boston
Yeah.
than Tsonga Center. So I think again, capacity of the two venues is about the same, but I think they're making that play for we can get more people
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
if we are closer.
Yeah. Absolutely. Also reported this last week by Ian Kennedy of the Hockey News that the PWHL is exploring adjustments to roster format to address depth issues.
Yeah, so the current format is 23 rostered players plus 3 developmental players. The 3 proposals are keep status quo. Second proposal is go to 24 rostered players and 2 developmental players. And then the third option, which is the most popular amongst the players, is to go to 25 rostered slots and no developmental players. Primarily a favorite because the developmental contracts are $15,000 each,
Yeah.
which is not
Yeah.
that's like they're already really low paid if they're on the
Yeah.
roster. That's like nothing.
Yeah.
So that's the most popular with the players. See what happens.
Together Media Brands launches Everyone Watches Women's Sports podcast in
Oh, behind
collaboration
the
with
time.
iHeart Women's Sports.
Did you want to tell everybody that we're
Yeah,
already on iHeart Women's?
we're already on iHeart Radio, so
That's right.
getting together with us. The Women's Professional Basketball League launches
Baseball.
Baseball League,
It's
basketball on the
tricky.
mind. Launches media campaign a few weeks ahead of their first games on August 1st.
We actually, I think, are going to do a little bit of a deep dive on this ahead of some travel we have in
Yeah.
August, so a pre-record for you guys. But just a heads up, this is coming. There's 4 teams. They're playing all their games in Springfield, Illinois, at the Robin Roberts Field. What's it called? Stadium in Springfield. The Boston Hunters, the New York Heights, the Los Angeles Queens, and the San Francisco Firebells are all named after like pioneers
Yeah,
in
yeah.
baseball, historical pioneers in baseball, women pioneers, I should say. And like Alex said, regular season starts August 1st. It's going to run until kind of the beginning of September, and then playoffs start mid-September and roll to the end of the month. So it's quick, obviously, 4
Yeah.
teams. They play all in one spot. You can catch all of these games streamed for free live on YouTube.
Look at
They're
that.
taking a page out of the PWHL book.
Amazing. All right. And for our Minnesota sports fans, we've got a few updates here. The Gemini are
Yo,
third.
can I just say, women's sports were wild in Minnesota this
Oh, yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
Saturday was nuts.
It was crazy. The Gemini from the Women's Elite Rugby League, third in standings, 2 points out of first with 2 games to go on July 19th against Denver Onyx and July 26th against top-ranked Bay Breakers.
And a shout out to a bar of their own, our very own local women's sports bar, who I think hosted watch parties for everything that happened on Saturday, including the Lynx. There was Wimbledon,
the
finals,
Vixen,
the Aurora, Gemini. So, hey, shout out to you guys.
Speaking of which, the Vixen national championship bound after a walk-off win last Saturday to win the American Conference. This is the, what is the official league name there? It's our Professional Football League.
Women's Football Association.
Yes.
I think it's the WFA.
Okay. And then our local women's soccer team, the Aurora, had an undefeated regular season, won the Central Conference Championship, but fell in the national semifinal to Salmon Bay FC on penalties over the weekend. Controversial all the way around. They had to travel from coast to coast. They had to play in their stadium. Late 89th minute penalty to give the tie to go into extra time there. So,
yeah,
very wild.
Unfortunate too. The Aurora, like Alex said, like undefeated all year long. I think I saw they only allowed 1 goal the entire year until that last game. They're consistently so good, but always tend to run into some sort of trip up, I feel like, in the playoffs. So
that they do.
All right. That was just a flavor of all of the different things going on in all of the different women's sports. We are going to dive now into some soccer updates. So we'll take a little spin through NWSL, talk a little bit about standings haven't really changed too much from last week, but Alex and I each kind of picked a topic to dive in on. And then we're going to get into this hypothesis I mentioned earlier.
Let's do it.
Let's dive in. As I mentioned, top 5, basically the top 5 teams didn't change at all week over week. There's a little bit of shuffling going on. I think what we're really watching out for, and we mentioned this last week as everybody came back from the World Cup break, the middle, like the bottom 4 qualifying for playoffs is going to be a wild ride, I think. You've got between, the fifth and sixth team here on 24 points. That's Utah and Kansas City. If you just go 6 points back from that, right, you're including basically down to the number 10 team right now in Seattle, and Denver hot on their heels with 16 points. So I think that is going to be really interesting. And we were talking about it earlier today before we started recording that, like, it really does feel like anyone can win.
It does.
Like, the parity is really, really high.
Yep, that's my spot.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm going to talk about that.
Okay, sorry.
I'm going to talk about it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Anyone can win on any given night, period, and I'm done.
There you go.
Why don't you do yours then?
Well, then we'll just dive right in. We'll dive right into it. Yeah,
I didn't even know I was teeing you up.
You're teeing me up pretty well there. I think what I really wanted to dig into is that, that middle section that we're talking about there. And we have some teams that are actually kind of lower than that are beating other teams. We had Chicago beating Utah 3-2. I think it was actually before last week's episode, which was a big surprise. We all know how Chicago's been doing this year.
Not good.
Not great. And Utah had been on 10-game unbeaten streak, I believe.
Back to
so
March.
Wild to see that happen. And then we had Angel City, who's kind of more towards the middle of the table, beat San Diego, I think 2-0 this past weekend. which was kind of a shocker, I think, for
Huge
anyone.
shocker. And I'd throw the Rain beat Portland
Yeah.
also on Sunday.
And then I have also, obviously Gotham's not bottom of the table, but they also have beaten Utah. I think this past weekend. So
Yes.
Utah, kind of going back to what we talked about before the break, is like who's going to come out of this?
Yep.
And
Who's that break good for and who's
Utah
it
had that
not?
really good unbeaten streak going, and then they come out of this and they're not
They probably
finding their
wish
footing.
that break had never happened.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I'm checking my notes here. Yeah, I was just like, I think that the parity this year is very interesting. I think it kind of shows like the health of the league is very good. Like you have a lot of depth across the entire league that allows almost any team. It was a shocker, like we said, for some of these games to some of these lower level teams to come up and beat the top of the table teams. But at the same time, that there's so much talent there. Any team can win on any night. It's going to be an extremely wild ride to the end of the season with all these teams we have in the top 8 or so.
Yeah, and you think about like what that break afforded for teams, right? A lot of rest, allowing you to kind of get your legs fresh.
Yeah.
So like these first couple weeks back are probably you're going to be able to play a little bit better, just more energy. But also like you have to imagine, coaches and staff are looking at those next couple games and they can like really dig in on a game plan.
Yeah.
So like a Seattle Reign could have really done a tight game plan for a Portland Thorns, right? Or an Angel City for a San Diego. And so, yeah, I think I was looking at something on Threads and some person was saying like, "Hey, I've been watching the World Cup and now I want to get into the NWSL or other women's leagues basically." Which is kind of funny. Like, I've been watching the men's World Cup, but I want to go watch women's soccer and we are here for that. And so they were asking, people on Threads or on the internet, like which women's leagues are going to be really competitive.
Yeah.
And what a lot of the posters were kind of agreeing responses was you're going to get top talent in the European leagues, right? A Barcelona, a Manchester City, etc. But the bottom of those tables are not very good, right? Whereas they were like, but the NWSL, you're going to have really quality play, but it's across the board.
Yeah.
Like all,
everyone.
18 teams or whatever. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. That was my main spiel. I just think that the parity is really interesting this year. So
agree. And I think building off of that, like the last couple of years, right, you kind of had Orlando Pride was like running away with the, regular season 2 years ago. Kansas City last year was like the very clear, I forget if they call it the shield in the regular season or some other thing, but like the winner of the regular season, right? Best record in the regular season. With that, I am actually really focused on Orlando Pride right now. We've talked about them on and off throughout the season as it started. Concerns for them on defense, I think, but they also boast Barbara Banda, who is clearly in very much the front runner for the Golden Boot. She's got 12 goals so far on the season. She did have a little bit of a knock, I think, in their last game before the break, and so she played on limited minutes in their first game back against Kansas City. Or in the game against Kansas City, I actually think it was their second game back, but they beat Kansas City 3-0.
Yeah.
And I saw that score and I was like, ooh, that's really interesting.
That is interesting.
It was kind of, you had Kansas City who was sort of starting to like rise after a really rocky start.
Yeah.
And then you had Orlando who was also sort of starting to rise going into that break. And so it was curious to me to see how these two teams would come out of that game. Temwa Schwinga for Kansas City Current was on limited minutes. She was had some illness, and Michelle Cooper was out with some, I think, back spasms or something. She just wasn't able to play. So not maybe quite the full, fully fit KC team that you typically see.
Yeah.
But we had Marta score a 30-yard shot, like the most casual touches. No one was defending her. I don't know if they just were like, she's getting older, so we just leave her alone. And she was like, I'm still the
That's
goat
a terrible
here.
idea. Yeah.
she's probably just upset that she's gotta keep playing so she can beat
Yeah,
Lionel Messi
exactly.
back for most goals in a World Cup. But it was actually pretty brilliant. I love her fire and how she kinda shows up. That was actually her first goal in run of play in over 2 years.
Oh,
She's only
wow.
scored from the penalty spot since then. 7 minutes later, they turned around and scored a goal on a corner kick. Just completely didn't guard their center back, and
Yeah.
she was free for a header, so that's fun. And then, Barbara Banda came into the game
Yep.
and scored a goal capitalizing on a goalkeeping error,
It is
by the KC
I think
goalkeeper.
I think it's interesting they're actually getting some spread around
Yeah,
with
a
the
little
goals. We
bit.
talked in
They're
the
spreading
past,
it
like,
around.
Banda was the person scoring all the goals coming into the break, really. Like, we were
Yeah,
like, she can't be the only one scoring goals. So it's good to see them kind of move that around.
right. And from a standings perspective, this is really interesting too because you've got Kansas City who I think are in 5th or 6th, somewhere in there. And so in Orlando in 8th, and then North Carolina lost to Washington. And so it
Mhm.
actually crept Orlando a little bit
Okay.
closer to North Carolina, right? From a win perspective. Now, I will say Orlando's goalkeeper still had to make 9 saves
Mhm.
to that's a lot of
Yeah.
saves in a professional soccer match. And so to me, I think that KC wasn't able to capitalize on some opportunities they did generate.
Yep.
And actually, I watched some of the match highlights, and they also missed a lot of opportunities. I think
Yeah.
Orlando still has a defense problem,
Okay.
and I think it becomes can they continue the offensive production from other people besides Banda,
Yeah.
or
To
does
make up for the
or does Banda
yeah.
just keep doing her thing? But, like, I still feel like they've gotta figure out the defense.
Yeah, for
Even though
sure.
this was a shutout, I think it was not a shutout by virtue of playing excellent
Yeah.
defense. I think it was
By
kinda
great
Kansas
goalkeeping.
and Kansas City missing
Yeah.
opportunities.
All right.
So,
All right.
we
Shall
keeping an eye on all things NWSL.
Yeah, let's dig into this women's soccer development
Jeez. Alright.
hypothesis that you have here.
Alright.
Theory.
Okay.
We're gonna test it. We're gonna do some
So,
research.
yeah, let's frame this up a little bit. So last week, beginning of the week, the US men's national team lost to Belgium in the round of 16
Yeah.
on Monday. And we had been watching and you kind of watch like all the reaction and whatnot. And one of the conversations that came out of that was some critique of the US youth system and our basically structure of what's known as pay to play.
Yeah.
And the general sentiment behind pay to play is that at a certain point you start to price out kids who and families who may be really really good or
Yep.
have really really high ceilings from a potential perspective because they just can't afford
Yeah.
to shell over thousands of
Yeah.
dollars a year for their kid to play competitive
Yeah.
football. Um, so anyways, that was kind of the premise. And then my thought was like, oh, that's really interesting to think about. And I think it's something we do want to talk about. Like US youth sports in general is
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
Absolutely.
But it made me think as we're watching the World Cup, like how do other countries do it?
Yep.
Right. And then I, of course, went a little bit further and I was like, we've got the Women's World Cup coming up. We just had arguably the worst finish in a World Cup in the
Yeah.
last one for the US women's national
Yep.
team. That was an abject failure,
Yep.
we would call that,
Yeah.
for that program, right? And I started thinking, we've also talked a lot about parity
Yep.
amongst nations and how there's more investment going towards
Yeah.
other federations, towards their women's programs, towards the development of whether it's academies or club, investment or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. And I was like, so my bold thought experiment
Okay.
is the pay to play system in the US actually creating a ceiling
Yeah.
for success that the rest of the world now is actually starting to catch up.
Yeah.
We have been um we have been able to avoid the repercussions of this for the most part on the global stage, largely because of Title IX.
Yeah.
Title IX being passed in the 70s opened the door to the opportunity for women to play in college. College is really what functions in the United States and for American women
Yeah.
as the academy-ish development,
Yeah.
right? Because then you back that into club play, and that's sort of like there's certain clubs you play for if you wanna go play in
Yeah.
college, and
Yep.
basically, if you don't play for those clubs, you're not gonna go
Yeah.
play in college, right? And so my thought was, I sort of wonder if we got the jump because of that legislation,
Yep.
right? And there was, like, some funding, right? It wasn't as well funded as the
Yeah.
men's, of course, but it was much better funded than a lot of the other
Yeah. Yeah.
nations in the world. And so I wanted to explore this. I wanted to
Yeah.
understand, like, how are other nations doing it? Why are we seeing the recent success of an England and a Spain,
Yeah.
right? Is that just, like, happenstance, or is there something more to it? Because, again, my bold hypothesis is it fair for us to be expecting that the women continue to just dominate
Yeah.
and win unless we think about the structure
Yeah.
differently? And Emma Hayes has come in and started to think about the US soccer structure differently, but she hasn't had time,
Yeah. She's not.
frankly,
Yeah.
nor maybe does she have ultimately the power to influence the funnel that goes into
Yeah.
US soccer.
Yeah. All right. Do you want me to set the stage here for
That's
how
my
we're gonna? Yeah.
premise.
We're gonna.
Yes.
The way we're gonna talk about this is we have 6 nations: the U.S., Spain, Japan, England, Brazil, and Colombia. And we're gonna talk about here shortly is the structure of each, the cost, coaching emphasis, and participation, I believe.
Mhm.
And then we'll do a little bit of analysis at the end here.
Yes.
Or do you want to do the analysis in line?
No, I think we need to have points of
All right.
comparison, and I just wanna add, we obviously we couldn't do every nation. We chose these
Yeah.
6. The 5 that you'll hear about first, Colombia will be at the end, are arguably thought of as probably the top 5 teams in the world right now, give or take a few, other nations, and then Colombia is really, like, one of those disruptors that I
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about, like, they have been on a surge lately, and they're an interesting contrast example, that I wanted to bring into the mix,
All right.
so
All right. Starting off with your favorite United States women's national team.
yes, I let Alex take it this time, so
Yes.
nice of me.
You are so nice to me. Uh, they are the current world number 2. Obviously, 2015, 2019 World Cup champs. And as you said, 2023 round of 16 exit there. Also, reigning Olympic champions.
Mhm,
And like you said, I think anything other than a win is basically a failure at this point.
is what it is thought of
Yeah.
as, yes.
Yep. And so, obviously, in America, our structure here is pay to play.
Mhm,
You can't just pick up a ball, go to a club and say, I want to play soccer, right?
mhm,
You've got to pay the money to play. There are many different academies and leagues that do this, but yes, you have to pay to play. And the cost here is the average family pays around $1,400 a year at the low end.
that's,
Um,
like, the
the
low
low
end.
end. Um, but elite clubs push that up past $10,000,
Mhm,
which I read that and I was like,
yeah,
that is crazy.
yep,
Um, Total annual cost for a high level club can range from $5,000 to $20,000 once uh, travel, showcases, and private training are included. That is absolutely insane to me, but
I mean, it's like
makes
daycare.
it makes sense though. This is America. Like, why aren't we gonna we're gonna make things privatized and make it
Mhm,
cost a lot of money. So yeah, that means that our coaching emphasis turns to like this exposure and showcase driven kind of thing where you're essentially paying to get in front of scouts
correct,
versus you're so good that you get to get in front of scouts,
correct.
right? And so that's what we're talking about when we kind of say, where is that a ceiling for us? Is your parents have the money to pay, so you're going to be go to college and play college ball versus
Mhm,
you actually have higher level talent to
mhm,
play in those.
mhm. And I wanna just really quick, I wanna point out, like, when we're talking about this, we're not saying that the players coming through those systems aren't talented.
Yeah.
They
Oh
are
yeah.
very talented.
Absolutely.
The question is, and no one can prove this, is are we missing out on even more talented youth because at the younger ages, their families were unable to
Yeah.
afford these steep costs,
Yeah.
right? You can get like I have a friend right now whose son has started to explore this, and it's like you can get asked to join these clubs, but then all of a sudden you get asked and then they're like, "Oh yeah, but actually give me $5,000." And you're like,
Yeah. Mm,
and that's hard for parents, right?
yeah.
Because you don't wanna then you're sitting there feeling guilty because
Yeah, you're not like,
whatever.
"Oh,
So,
I can't really do
anyways,
that."
I just wanted to make sure that we're not saying that there's a lack of talent in the US, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have quite skilled footballers
Yeah, and then some of the stats on participation,
on the women's.
high school, girls soccer, almost 400,000 players in 2024 to 25, which is around 3.5 to 4% of U.S. girls aged 14 to 18, and is the third most popular high school sport. Uh, Also coming with that, the total youth soccer participation of both sexes is up 23% since 2018, and they're kind of thinking there's going to be more with the World Cup having been this year. And then, yeah, so there's this kind of retention issue where 70% of kids quit soccer by the age of 14.
And a lot of times that's
Yeah.
for many, you could say it's a cost barrier. I would also just asterisk this and say, like, for girls around that age is when you're really starting to feel the effects of puberty, and
Yeah.
if you are not in the right environment to navigate that
Yeah.
and play a sport, you're gonna quit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so
We're gonna move
we're going to move
on
on
to
to
Spain.
Spain as our number 2.
Yes. So, taking us through Spain really quick, this is current world number 1. They are the defending World Cup champions. They were, 4th at the 2024 Olympics in their first Olympics appearance, which is kind of crazy. And then they were the 2025 Euros runners up. So when the European nations all play for a championship, but they have shown up well in that over the years. Quarterfinal finishes in 2013, 2017, and 2022. But a lot of their highest success has come very recently,
Yeah.
right? So, what is in the tea, in the water over in España? So their structure is club academy driven. So basically, their club teams like Barcelona are going to have academies, youth academies, where they are going to get kids really, really young, and they are going to drive them all the way through this academy. And that that's a unique approach. Relative to we'll hear about England in a little bit,
Yep.
which is more federation driven. US soccer is kind of a combo a little bit of the two. And what's interesting here too is that they offer on-site residency. So when I say like drive them through the ranks, they literally will go
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
in these kind of compounds where like they just eat and
Yeah.
breathe soccer. The cost for this is largely subsidized. So it's almost entirely free to families. The clubs invest a lot of money in this because they want to be able to curate the very best talent for their senior
Yeah.
sides, right? Their first teams. And so they are interested in ensuring that the cost is not a barrier. However, what that means is you have extremely competitive, selection. So for you to continue to stay in the club, right, and to continue to get access to that training and that coaching and that mentorship and development, you have to be on your game all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of a different challenge, but you could argue that it's probably getting them the best talent that they can get in their club regional
Yeah.
area,
Yeah.
right? Um, Coaching emphasis in Spain is very much on technical mastery and positional awareness, like positional intelligence. And this is also fascinating when you pair it with their academy system. If that like you're starting to instill these values in players as
Yeah.
young as 7 and 8 years old, and they are building that same mentality
Yeah.
all the way through until they're playing maybe with second team or first team when they're in their mid to late teens. Um, that's a hell of a foundation to be
Yeah.
laying. Definitely a philosophy first system. But I think, oh yeah, here it is. It's translated into growth for on the girls and women's side in particular, as they've developed this academy system. So football, soccer is now Spain's second most federated women's sport in the country, behind only basketball. And they have a very direct, measurable dividend related to the professionalization of their Liga F, which is like their women's uh, um, NWSL
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
there. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm losing my mind. And then you also think about the senior teams a World Cup win. And so within that time frame, basically since 2022, they've seen a massive growth
Yeah.
in their girls and women's programs over
Yeah.
there. And that actually generates like a nice pipeline for now,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of the question. We'll come back to that in a little bit here.
All right. So coming into Japan, who we've actually talked about quite a bit.
The
Yeah.
Nadeshiko.
They are the current world number 5, 2011 World Cup champs, 2015 runners up, 2019 round of 16, and 2023 quarterfinals. And they are the 2012 Olympic silver medalists. Also have won Asian Cup championships in 2014, 2018, and 2016. Their structure is a little bit more dual track and a little bit unique. They have school clubs, which are central to
Yeah.
developing their players. Um, a lot of the world does the local teams or the youth academies, like you just
Mhm.
talked about. So this is a little bit more built into the school system. They do have some academies which are similar to like a boarding school, like you were talking about.
Yeah,
Uh,
run by their
yes, run
federation.
by the federation. Yes, absolutely. And they say they're built to develop the top 10 in the world individual talent. The other part I found very interesting about the Japanese setup, it's all built into the school's infrastructure. So
Yes.
obviously, if you want to play, you can play,
Yep.
and it's set up for anyone to do that, which will be very interesting when we talk about participation in a little
Mhm.
bit. For the coaching emphasis, they have the WE League, which is launched in 20. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. The WE League might be one of those things like WeChat in China, whatever,
I would
something
call it the
like that.
Wii League. That sounds
Is their first fully professional women's league, explicitly founded to be the driving force for kind of their gender equality and reclaim the World Cup for Ashiko, Japan. Like we've talked about, they are big on discipline, technical
Mhm.
repetition, and fair play as a point of national pride, which we
Yes.
always see when we play them.
Yes.
A little bit different than playing Brazil.
You may have heard, like, too, I think that's just like a national ethos, because they're the
Yes.
ones who always like clean up the locker room, or
Yeah.
like their
Yeah.
fans will clean up their areas of the
Yep.
stadium. So I love that that's just like they're just like, yep,
Yeah. We're
fair
gonna.
play.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep, I
Good
love it.
sports.
It's
Yeah.
great.
When it comes to participation, they kind of have some stagnation happening. So they've plateaued around 50,000 players since 2014,
Whoa.
despite winning the World Cup in 2011. Uh, and the interesting part is they are attempting to get to a goal of 200,000
Oh
registered
boy.
players by
I got a lot of work
2030,
to do.
meaning they are at 25% of their own target, and they've got 3.5 years left to get there.
Okay.
Uh, Part of this is they think due to the female playing population being low relative to the population side, to kind of the rest of the nations
Yeah.
we're talking
Yeah.
about here. So
That makes sense. All right. I have to find it. I'm gonna take us through England next. So another team in this kind of top tier teams that we've been discussing here, but England being the current world number 4, they won the Euros in 2022
mhm.
and 2025. and were the World Cup runners-up in 2023. Something that's really interesting to note, and, we didn't mention it with the US, but 'cause it's not confirmed yet, but they are currently the sole bid, along with Northern Ireland,
Yep.
Scotland, and Wales to host the 2035 World
Okay.
Cup. And Alex is gonna talk about Brazil in just a moment, but a lot of times the federations or the establishments also try to inject a lot into their programs ahead of a World
Yeah,
Cup
yeah.
because they want to win
Okay.
at home. And so I think that is interesting to think about with the US also having the bid for the
Yeah.
2031. So, for England, this is federation driven. So the FAA centralized approach has been rapidly professionalizing since 2022. So they went ahead and developed these emerging talent centers. So there's over 70 of these that have now been developed or created, I should say, to serve as entry points for players from ages 8 to 16. I was misreading my numbers. Which replaces these regional talent centers. So coming off of the Euros in 2022, this was like the flashpoint
Yeah, yeah.
for the Lionesses. And really what I think the challenge was to the English women's national team at that time was like we don't have a lot of diversity on this team. We don't have folks from different areas of the country, right? It's kind of localized and things like that to a few spots. And again, there was some
Yeah.
access barriers. They sought to change that with these emerging talent centers. And then from those emerging talent centers, then players will advance around 14 to 20 to these professional game academies.
Mm.
So these are all run by the federation. They are not in association with specific clubs, which is different from Spain,
Yeah.
right? And then different from Japan, where that's not federation based at all. It's
Yeah.
all based in schools, which
Yep.
also kind of speaks to Japan's, like, I think, heavier emphasis on education.
Yes, yep.
Not that these folks aren't going to school, it's just structured in a
Yeah.
different way. Um, the cost here as a result of those Euros wins, I should say, a ton of money has gone into, decommodifying this structure.
Yeah.
So they really want to ensure, again, that cost and access are removed as barriers. And so the Premier League actually, the men's kind of professional organization over there, club organization, committed 6.8 million pounds over 3 years, specifically to make these ETCs free.
Mm.
And when you think about that, that cost barrier being removed just like helps open the pool
Yeah.
for, and we'll talk about the huge increase in participation that they've had as a result. Um, their emphasis is really, like I said before, on access and diversification.
Yeah.
So, can we double the number of girls in these FA talent programs while also boosting staff and referees?
Yeah.
Right? You know that you need, there's like a whole thing that you
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
enable for more people to play. It's not just the players themselves. And I think that is, they're on a good path for that.
Yeah.
Right now, they have about almost 900,000 girls playing football in a former setting. This is up 26% since 2018, which is awesome to see.
Mm.
And they have nearly 3 million registered female players that sit under that overall FA
Yeah.
remit. Um, in this case, and I think in this case of Spain as well, momentum from the senior side is directly, or excuse me, I should say momentum for this growth and the funding and investment is directly tied to results for the
Yeah.
senior side.
Yep.
So participation rose another 5% in the 5 months following the Lionesses' back-to-back Euro win in 2025. And again, for them, it was also increases in female coaches, up 12%, and then referees up 29% year over year. Now, one thing I'll add with England, we mentioned the World Cup hosting being important for them. They still have to qualify,
Yep.
just like the US,
Yep.
for the 2027 World Cup. They arguably have a harder path to qualification than the US
Yeah.
does, but these are areas where it's interesting to watch where, like, if you just aren't on your game, how does losing a qualification, not saying that that's gonna happen to them, but how would losing a
Yeah.
qualification impact this
Yeah,
growth?
absolutely. All right, should we move on to Brazil? They are our current world number 7, the upcoming World Cup host nation, 2007 World Cup runners up, 1999 third place, in 2003, 2011 quarterfinals. Also have Olympic silver medals in 2004, 2008, and 2024.
They were pretty dominant
Yeah.
in the aughts.
And then Copa America champions 9 out of 10 times, 91 through 25, only missing in 2006.
Yep.
Yep, that happened.
They own South America, basically.
This is going to be a whirlwind. Some of these stats as I was reading them was like, what is going on here?
Mhm.
So much happening.
Mhm.
They had to kind of rapidly formalize after really underinvesting, i.e., women's football was banned
Yep.
from 1941 to 1979.
Yep.
Um, as recently as 2024, a few federations organized under U17 tournaments, and now more than 22 do. And as of this year, Serie A clubs are required to run fully funded U17 and U20 teams to
Mhm.
obtain their license, which I think that's a great
Forcing function.
forcing function there. Um, Obviously, the investments are surging ahead of this World Cup next year. Uh, Paul
Palmeiras.
Palmeiras has allocated 23.4 million Rias. Is that what they call their currency?
Sure.
To its women's program. But kind of the access is still uneven outside of those bigger clubs. There are some grassroots efforts to fill gaps in favela communities with free training. Uh, the interesting thing here that I thought was that they have quintupled the registered professional players from 2022 to 2026. It was 214 in 2022 and now
Oh my god.
1058 in 2026. And kind of the emphasis here on coaching is that they try to focus on quantity and continuity of competitive minutes and looking at that traditional kind of creative technical style that they have,
Mm.
and probably some of the aggressive kind of, we'll call it aggressive, we'll call it
Yeah,
physical
physical,
kind of style there.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, we have those numbers on the professional numbers that had quintupled. It's harder to get kind of the lower level, like lower ages numbers than other nations. So we don't really have that. But like we said, that structured growth is being mandated by requiring those teams to run U17 and U20 teams. And yeah, I think the big question is this something that they can do to continue that growth, or is it an expansion based on some fragile foundations? I think some clubs have recently kind of folded down there. So is it something that can scale?
Mhm. Yeah. I think, as we move into Colombia here, we're gonna see some similar themes. So I think generally speaking in kind of the Latin American, South American, countries, women's football has been hugely underinvested in. The fact that they're even able to compete in some of these
Yeah.
world stage tournaments is actually really impressive given the lack of support. I mean, you think of the dominance of Brazil that you just talked about in the early aughts, like what did you just say? 214
Yeah.
registered professional players. Like
Yeah.
that's that's pretty impressive. And really speaks to just that, while their tactics and their approach to playing might
Yeah.
not be uh something that we like appreciate as much, right? Or maybe we should appreciate it more. It's clearly effective.
Yeah.
Okay. Colombia currently ranked world number 20. And like I said at the beginning, they're in my list because they're on a bit of a surge here lately, and I think they're kind of storming onto the world stage. These last couple of years, they've definitely been around, been competing. They've been Copa America runners-up since 2010, but their biggest claim to fame was a quarterfinal appearance in the 2023 World
Mhm.
Cup. It was only their 3rd time in that tournament, where they have qualified or participated, right? And then they were quarterfinals in the 2024 Olympics, so very recent success. Um, Not because of any kind of structure behind them. I think I will use Linda Caicedo, who is really their generational talent down there, as kind of our albatross, or like our
Yeah,
example that we're
yeah.
gonna use. But essentially, you have a very unformalized, approach to this. Frankly, a lot of players who there is no girls or women's program for them to participate in, so they play with the boys.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so, as a result, a lot of their style is gonna be more physical, it's gonna be a little bit faster, quicker, they can adapt a little bit quicker, but you get the benefit of bringing that style up
Yeah.
against some other teams that may not be as accustomed to that
Yeah.
physicality, right? We saw that in the US-Brazil
Yeah.
matchup. I think you see that when the US plays Colombia as well, or Paraguay, right? We
Yeah.
saw that earlier this year. So, um, as a result, largely very public and informal, so it's not like it costs a lot, but you're not getting anything, so
Yeah.
it's also you're getting what you don't pay for.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think what's difficult for Colombia in particular is in the US, cost is a barrier to potentially identifying talent. In this case, identifying talent is basically based off of word of mouth.
Yeah.
And so you're essentially hoping that the right person
Yeah.
finds out about you.
Yep.
I'm assuming that if you really want to pursue this, you have to go try to find people
Yeah.
that are going to get you into the funnel. Um, like I said before, I think improvisational play, physical play is really a big part of their philosophy, from a Colombian Football Federation perspective. One thing that is interesting is that they have recently begun formalizing coaching education,
Mm.
kind of going off of a Barcelona-based like program and uh, approach to training, I should say. And so that is a good start, almost to say, like, let's start to train up a lot of coaches so that
Yeah.
then we can go start to have these teams and these training
Yep.
centers and things like that. Maybe, who
Yeah.
knows where they're going. Um, there is obviously with that training, there is some indication of growing investment. There's been a significant increase in dollars, if you will, flowing towards women's national teams. I think the challenge is that a lot of those dollars are going towards the senior team and not necessarily towards the
Yeah.
developmental pipeline to get to that senior team. So, something for us to watch out for with Colombia. Um, yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
basically it. I
I
think.
think one of my big takeaways here, and it's obviously very easy because we're in the US, we kind of understand how that system works. And I don't know if you mentioned this in the intro necessarily, but we've talked about it a bit, is there very much in the coming years, the expecting the US women's national team to just win the World Cup every year
Mhm.
may not may not be it.
Yeah.
Like with the pay to play aspect, we're going to get talented individuals, but not necessarily someone who may have been more talented because they had to drop out 10 years ago. And you may have these other teams where it's more ingrained into certain systems and cheaper, kind of bring it up and have more parity within the international leagues.
Yeah, I think after kinda doing this, uh, deepish dive, or just, like, this little bit
Yeah.
of research on this, I some of the questions I leave with it, I agree with you, like, and that was the whole premise of this, right, was, like, is it actually fair for
Yeah.
us to just assume that the US women's national
Yep.
team will win? And I think the answer is no. I don't think it's fair for them, and I also don't think it's fair to these other nations who are
Yeah.
investing and are, coming up and, let's like appreciate the
Yeah.
quality and appreciate the competition that we get to see. I do think before I put a bow on that part, and then I want to talk a little bit about some of the things to watch out for here. I do think Emma Hayes is a once in a lifetime
Yeah.
coach, and I do think that she is somebody who will do everything in her power, as we're seeing with their lead up to
Yeah.
the World Cup, to ensure that this team is as prepared as she could
Yeah.
possibly, make them. Um, as we think about zooming back and like thinking about these different clubs, I think a couple of questions kind of stand out for me, or a couple of things for us to think about is we've seen that England and Spain, as examples, have had a significant amount of investment
Mhm.
based off of recent success.
Yep.
Sometimes the investment and support of women's sports feels fragile, in
Yeah.
the sense that if you are not producing the results, does the
It
investment
just
go
all
away?
shut down, yeah.
And I would really challenge the leaders of these federations who are obviously listening to this
Yeah, yeah,
podcast,
obviously.
but that like these things do take time, and that just because if you're England and you don't make it to the semifinals of the World Cup, or just because you're Spain and maybe you know
Yeah.
soccer can be a brutal game
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
right? And you don't make it to where you think you are supposed to be, that you remove that funding, right? I
Yeah.
think a lot of times it's like a coach doesn't get you there and they're like, get them out. Well, it's
Yeah.
like sometimes these things take time to cement, right? And um, if you're not willing to like let that all marinate, you're
Yeah.
never going to get the results that I
Yeah.
think you want.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a little bit like the saying, like, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the
Yeah,
next best time is right now. It's like you you don't wanna just cut down the tree because it didn't grow the way you thought it
right.
would. You have to give it the time.
Right. And it makes me wonder with like some of these significantly kind of under-supported, underfunded nations like a Brazil, like a Colombia, like are they going to do the things, right? Brazil is kind of is this like an
Yeah.
artificial investment to promote the World Cup, to push for I can't even imagine the expectation on
Yeah.
that team going into this World Cup, right? But will that sustain and really like can we raise the level across the
Yeah.
board, right? I think Japan is a nation where they clearly have participation issues.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you get more girls to come out and play? Because eventually that pool that you're picking from is so limited
Yep.
that while they have had sustained success, it's actually really freaking impressive,
Yeah.
frankly. Like, is it because the self-selection mechanism is like you really are only getting the people who
Yeah.
really wanna
Really, really wanna
play
do it.
football?
Yeah.
So anyways, it was really interesting to explore,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think something we gotta think about heading
Yeah.
into 2027.
Absolutely.
All right, so moving on to the WNBA, just shifting shifting gears here. After all the soccer, we'll do a quick kind of overview of standings recap. Frankly, again, I think similar to
Yeah.
NWSL, like there's movement, but you know, anyway. So the way we see it, it's like the top four teams don't really
No, they
change. They
don't.
maybe like shift a spot or two, but essentially you've got Minnesota, Las
Yep.
Vegas, the Valkyries, and Dallas. A couple weeks ago, Atlanta and Liberty were like in this
Yeah.
mixer,
Yeah, absolutely.
and they both have had very
Yeah.
significant
Big
slides.
slides.
So then you move into the next eight teams, basically. You're talking about Indiana, like I said, Atlanta, New York, Washington Spirit. Nope, that's the Mystics. Shoot.
You did it again this week.
It's unavoidable. The Los Angeles Sparks. That one was hard too. Portland
Portland.
and Toronto.
Yeah.
And those eight teams just keep kind of like
Yeah,
jumping and
rotating
jiving and
through.
shuffling all
Yeah.
up and down. And then you got the bottom four and they
Yeah.
just kind of stay down there.
Yeah.
Um, I Now, that all that being said, I also think we have some pretty decent parity in this league too, where any given night, any team can win, right? We saw the Connecticut Sun beat the Lynx
Yeah.
last week, and then the Lynx turned around and righted the ship. In the midweek, Chicago almost take down the Wings
Yeah.
again.
I think it's interesting that Washington's up at 8 now. Like, I did not have them that
Oh,
high up. I did
I
not think
did.
they would.
They were in my
Okay. All right.
challengers bucket.
All right.
Um, yeah, they're sneaky.
Yeah.
They're sneaky. All right, so that's a little bit about just overall standings. We're heading into the All-Star break, which will start a week from when you are listening to this. Basically, I think the last games are that
Yeah.
a
Yep.
week from today's episode. So all the teams will get a little bit of a rest, minus the All Stars. Who, I mean, I don't think that's a lot of work, but maybe. And we'll see where we go from there. Why don't you want to take us through kind of your spotlight this
Yeah,
week?
I think my spotlight was just the surprise of the expansion teams.
You're
Obviously
surprised?
they are where was that? What was their standings here? They are right now in 10th and 11th place, Portland and Toronto respectively. Which sounds like it's way down there. They're 10 and 13. They're not doing terrible. A lot of times when leagues have expansions, you are expecting them to be total punching bags, right?
Totally.
And so I think that at 10 and 11 and in a spot where they could totally jump up if they kind of find their groove a little bit more is very interesting. Just as kind of a reminder, Toronto has Brittany Sykes, who is a former WNBL Defensive Player of the Year. Marina Mabry, who is the highest paid. She broke the 3-point record 2 weeks ago. Tied it. Broke the scoring.
Tied it.
Tied both.
Tied both.
And then they have rookie Kiki Rice in Portland, has our beloved Bridget Carlton from
DC.
Minnesota. Megan Gustafson, who they drafted from or got in free agency from Las Vegas. I can't remember which there.
Mhm.
And then breakout Carla
Late.
Late. Always forget how to pronounce that. And just some other interesting things that I thought from this was that Portland's opener drew a sellout crowd of 19,335 earlier this season. So we've seen some of those games. They have a
Toronto
crazy crowd
just
there.
played in that Montreal game.
Yep, exactly. With the was that 21
almost 21,000, yeah.
And so I think it's interesting. Golden State proved last year that expansion teams can really compete in this league. And I'm interested to see where Toronto and Portland end up, towards the end of the season here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think they're also teams that you don't really want on your schedule.
Yeah.
As they come up, you're kind of like, oh shoot. I was looking at the standings here. Like they're in 10th and 11th, but they're
Yeah, but
tied
then
in wins with the Sparks at 9, and they're 1 win behind Washington at
Exactly.
11. So like they're not that far out of playoffs, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if one of them sneaks in.
Yeah, I was gonna say they might not be playoff teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're on the bubble in the mix at the end of the season.
Agree. And they've been fun to watch, like you said. I think just like those followings and the fan bases. Marina Mabry is always a good time to watch, and that Portland team I feel like plays really well together, like as a unit. Their coach is a little like eccentric. I think I saw a video early in the season where like they were doing a practice like not wearing shoes. Gotta get grounded, touch grass or something. I don't know. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that's definitely something we gotta be keeping our eyes on. And apparently expansion is not a scary thing in the W, which is great because we have 3 new expansion teams coming over the next 3 years. So we'll see how if they can hang with the status quo that's being set here. All right, my spotlight is Paige Bueckers and the Dallas Wings. I think you spotlighted them like a couple months ago now. I have just watched them more in the last couple of weeks. They've been on when I've been able to watch, and they're very good. I think we all know that, but if we think about kind of where they came from, you highlighted this and where they're at now, it's impressive, the year-over-year growth. I think too, just like early in the season, there was kind of this whole like, oh, selfishness in this locker room. And now Jose Fernandez looks like maybe a genius. I don't know. But they're 7-3 in their last 10 games, 4th overall in the league. They're 5th in points per game, 7th in rebounds per game, 2nd in assists per game. They share the ball really,
Look
really
at that.
well, and they're 7th in opponents' points per game, and I think that's where they get a little stuck. I think defense is a little bit of a struggle for them, and that is some of the deciding factor
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
games that they end up losing, obviously, but, like, their offense hums.
Yeah.
I think when they lose, it's because their defense isn't dialed in. That's what I mean. Jess Shepard, former Minnesota Lynx
Yep.
player, absolutely thriving down
Yeah.
there. Um, before I feel like there's some commentary around, like, uh, why didn't Minnesota use her more? And unfortunately for Jess Shepard, when she was on the
They had a
Lynx,
really good team already.
well, she was behind
Yeah.
Napheesa Collier, who's
Yeah.
arguably the 2nd best player in the
Yeah.
WNBA, or was last year. I know we haven't seen her yet this year. So I love that she's down there and that she's been able to find kind
Yeah.
of her groove thing. So one thing I did find out in looking, because I do think double doubles are impressive.
Yeah.
She has 15 double
That
doubles
is
so far this
insane.
season. You guys, where'd the schedule go? We've played like
Uh
24
20-ish some
games
games.
or something
Yeah.
like that. Okay. She also has 3 triple
Yeah.
doubles so far this season. And I was watching the game against Chicago, and man, can she find a good pass.
Yeah.
It's like her court vision for a big is great.
Yeah.
Really fun to watch. I think her and Paige in like the pick and roll game is really cool. I think Paige is probably loving that. Then you've also got AZ Fudd, who, beginning of the season kind of was like,
Slow start.
and I don't really know if that was more of a coaching thing than an
Yeah,
AZ
yeah.
thing. Like it seemed weird. She seemed like she wasn't quite sure like what she was allowed to do
Yeah.
almost. But she seems to be kind of settling in. And I was again watching the Chicago game last night. And man, when you see AZ shoot, you're like, dang, that is
Yeah.
a pure
Yeah.
stroke.
I
So
think
good.
it's what's interesting is that I've seen some stats around her just today, and I think that early on, obviously, we said it's kind of a slow start, and Olivia Miles was kind of running away with everything right away for like rookie of the year
Yeah. Yeah.
conversation. I still don't think she beats Olivia Miles right now, but I see her stock rising
Yeah.
in the rookie of the year kind of race there.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think defensively, right, we knew AZ was a good two-way player coming into the league. She has proven that she can continue to do that at the highest level
Yep.
in the W. She's leading all rookies right now in steals and blocks. She's also leading all rookies in three-pointers made, and she actually would join if she maintains this pace and maintains leading in steals and blocks, she would join Tamika Catchings,
Ooh.
5-time defensive player of the year in the WNBA, WNBA champion, MVP, all the things, right? And so it puts her in very rare company. So love to see it. Love to see her growing into her professional career over the course of her
Yeah.
rookie year. Will be really interesting to watch
Yeah.
how that continues to go. And then I got to finish out here with Paige.
Yeah.
Paige Bueckers is the best guard in the WNBA.
Absolutely.
Hands down. You can't argue me off that point right now with the way she's playing.
Yeah.
I have watched 4 or 5 games in the last couple of weeks where they are down in the fourth quarter oftentimes, and she takes over the game.
Yeah, she does.
Her step back in the mid-range, creating space with the dribble is unmatched.
Yep.
Her length helps her there a lot. For all the people saying she does not get guarded, I don't know what you're watching.
Yeah.
I watch her get guarded left, right, and center, and she is just that good.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with that. But she is averaging 20.7 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, 6.3 assists per game. She's top 5 in points, 7th in assists. She has helped take this team right from a 10-win season last
34,
year
yeah.
to what do they have right now? Where'd that record go? 16 already this year. And I just think, like, too, there's, like, the intangibles for Paige, right? There's the leadership piece. She's got a
Yep.
little bit of, like, the, you know, competitive edge on the court and things like that, but then also, like, she shows up in a press conference, you've talked about this a lot,
Yeah.
says all the right things, like, just shows up like such a leader for that
Yeah.
team, and
I
it's fun to watch.
I think an additional dimension that she has too is in some of like the social media posts, she's goofing around, right? She has
Yeah,
this
yeah.
she's super competitive on the
There's, like, a
floor.
looseness about
She
her.
is perfect in front of a camera somehow all the time, and then she is a goofball too on like when it does you don't need
Right,
to be serious, which is
right.
kind of like the combo you want in a
Yeah,
player, right?
yeah. So, um, we'll be watching, we'll be tuned in. We, of course, girls love Paige. Paige
Yep.
is from,
The area,
nearby
yep.
nearby where we live, and, love seeing her have the success she's having, but man, shout out to the Dallas Wings.
Yeah, they're doing great.
We beat them 3 times and we don't have to play them anymore,
Yeah.
so
We
that's
can
why
gush
I
on
can
them
be
now.
high on them right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
No, I'm just
exactly.
kidding. I'm just kidding. I really like them. They're not a team I wanna see in the
Yeah,
playoffs, that's for
not at
sure.
all. All right, let's wrap this thing up. We'll go through some what to watch here and some momentum and setbacks. WNBA, we've got the New York Liberty at the Dallas
Hey.
Wings on Thursday, July 16th, 8 p.m. Central on Prime. We then have Portland Fire at Minnesota Lynx
Oof,
Saturday, July 18th at 7 p.m.
that
Your local
scares me.
channels or WNBA League Pass.
At least it's at home.
Yeah,
We don't have to go to the
yeah,
fair pit.
exactly. And then finally, we have Las Vegas Aces at Toronto Tempo on Monday, July 20th, 7 p.m. on Peacock. NWSL, Kansas City Current plays the San Diego Wave
Oh,
Friday, July 17th,
alright.
7 p.m. The Utah Royals are playing the Orlando Pride Saturday, July
Oh.
18th at 7:45
Uh-oh.
p.m. on
Uh-oh, Utah.
Ion. And then we have the Chicago Stars versus Angel City FC Saturday, July 18th at
There's
5:30 p.m. on Ion. Like we talked about a little bit earlier today, the Women's Elite Rugby has another 3 games, all on Women's Sports Network. Boston Banshees versus Chicago Tempest Saturday, July 18th at 4 p.m. Bay Breakers versus New York Exiles Saturday, July 18th at 7 p.m. Central. And our very own TC Gemini versus the Denver Onyx Sunday, July 19th at 5 p.m. Central.
Ooh,
They have 2 more games left.
okay.
We'll have to figure out how the end of the season works there.
I know, I was trying to look it up, and it was really hard to find. Um, that's gonna be it's gonna be some big Minnesota women's
Yeah.
sports moments next couple weekends
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. Oh, momentum and setbacks.
Alright, I'm gonna do are we doing should we do setbacks
Yeah, let's do
first? Okay.
setbacks first.
I oh, my setback is that it has become almost untenable to be a WNBA fan. I genuinely, y'all, told Alex that I needed to, like, not go on our social media, like, our
Yeah, yeah.
podcast account, because people are just, um, eh, arguing with us, in not, like, the nicest ways
Yeah.
in comments, but even just, like, reading stuff and, like, when we're trying to get caught up on different storylines and understand sort of what's going on, it's, like, and it's not just the online, right? It's like what's being now brought into the broadcast room,
Yep.
the
Yep.
letter from Congress, like there's just it's like icky. And I think where I go, and I talked about this a little bit ago, a couple episodes ago, of like the impact that this is having on the league. The
Yeah.
reputation and the view of the league is now starting to sour for some people, and like you're supposed to be having this like historic 30th
Yep.
anniversary and all of these things, and there's really a cloud over it in a lot of different
Yeah,
ways.
and I think I saw that while this is happening, the commish is playing in a golf tournament and just kind of out there, not really like saying a lot about the other things that are happening in the league, right?
Yeah, she like canceled, like last minute canceled a live interview with on the Dan she was supposed to be on the Dan Patrick show. It sounded like her and her PR team weren't talking. I don't know.
There might
'Cause
be we might have a story to bring in there.
There is a lot going on here, but to me, there's so much goodness, but it's being overshadowed by this, like, pocket of negativity, and I don't think that we have the right leader in place
Yeah.
to navigate us through this moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think my setback would be Utah and their couple losses.
Oh, man, yeah.
They really need to figure it out here.
That break
They don't want
was
it to
not
be
a
a
good
they don't want this to be turned into a 5-game slide, and
Right.
just hopefully they can pull something out. I was hoping to see them continue that streak for at least a little
I
bit longer to
know,
see
would've
how it would
been
go.
fun.
So
It is interesting to see, like, can they right the ship, right?
yeah,
And then what does that look like for them?
yep,
But I like the parity. I like
yeah,
I like that there isn't one dominant
yeah.
team necessarily. It makes every game worth tuning into. All right, momentum.
Momentum, go for it.
I'm also sticking with the W, so I have the crash out queen herself,
Oh yes,
Marina Mabrey. If you have not had a chance to watch her, she plays on the Toronto Tempo. We mentioned that a little bit ago, but she was the July Player of the Month in the Eastern Conference. In that time span that they measure, she's averaging 38 points per game.
yeah,
She had the 53 piece. She had 34 against the
yep,
Wings the other day. That woman can shoot the three from all over the floor.
yeah,
Like, I think whenever we talk about really, like, deep threes, we always think of Caitlin Clark, and, like, Marina Mabrey has the same range as Caitlin Clark, and she's got, like, a kind of a swagger to her game, but there's a goofiness and, like,
yep,
a
yeah,
lightness to it. She's tough. She's not gonna back down from a
yeah,
fight, but you talk about that Toronto Tempo team, I think of Marina Mabrey. I love and hey, first All-Star. She's
yeah,
gonna be an
yeah,
All-Star, which is
amazing.
awesome. So shout out to Riri, as they call her,
Oh,
or
did not know they called her
I
that.
think the chef, something like
All
that. I
right.
don't know.
My momentum, if you roll the tape back about a minute, you can see me longingly looking at my notes that are laying across the floor,
Trying.
trying to think of a momentum here. And then I had thought of one. Of course, ADHD took over, and I forgot what it was. Uh, Actually, I think what I want to say is the Minnesota Aurora. I know losing the semifinal is not how you want to end the season, but they had such an amazing season.
Mhm.
They are ballers. I don't know what is going on over there. They're just always winning. I did hear that there is some potential changes in how money works in USLW, or like
Mm.
how the team sponsorship works or whatever that
Yeah.
is. And so hopefully,
You wanna buy
crossing our
'em?
finger, yeah, I'll hopefully this podcast takes off and then we can buy them.
Yeah.
But
Like,
no, yeah.
subscribe, and
Yeah,
share.
exactly. Um so yeah, just kind of crossing fingers and hoping that their record can kind of help them move up to potentially that next level, and then eventually
Eventually, we
NWSL.
need a team
We do.
here.
But yeah, that's mine.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right. Well, is that it?
Yeah, RTG_pod on Instagram. I will be running it this week, as you just heard.
Yeah.
RTG
I'm on a break.
under RTG_pod on Threads, RTGpod.com, Raising the Game on Substack, Raising the Game podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah. Seriously though, like, subscribe,
Yeah, do all those
share,
things.
comment, drop us a comment. It
Yeah.
is also nice when we get nice comments. And we
Yes.
tend to interact with those ones more.
Yeah.
So if you want us to
Shout out to Vines242 or whatever.
Vines
Yeah.
242.
Yeah.
We love you,
Yeah,
man.
we love you.
All right. Till next week. Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Bye.